Love to hear a Bob White singing his song. See a big buck on a frosty dawn. Watch our kids catch their first bluegill. See them laugh and hear them squeal. We weren't born into it, but it fits us just right. We thank the Father for his guiding light. We knew we were blessed with this kind of living. That's why we want to keep on giving back to farm life. True North farm life. It's a great life. True North farm life.
Hello. Welcome to another edition of the True North Farm Life podcast. I've got myself here, Chris Hinkle, and on the other line, how you doing, Thomas?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Good. Thomas Cooper from North Central Arkansas, and we're just coming to you today. Man, we've had a big past couple weeks. I'll tell you that. It's been really, really good. I've spent the last week in Nashville, Tennessee. As most of you know, I'm a national board member for the National Wild Turkey Federation, and so this is our convention week in Nashville, and it was really, really special this year. We had a lot of people that's anybody in the turkey hunting industry is at that event, and it has grown to so big. I don't know how many people. It hadn't been, they haven't said yet how many people was there at the event, but it was more crowded than I've ever seen it before. We had great turkey calling. We had great fellowship. I guess one of the biggest things coming out of that event for me anyway, I'm always curious about, the research, the wildlife, the turkeys. That's my biggest part of that. And Dr. Chamberlain was there, and I think most of you guys know that Dr. Chamberlain is the professor for turkeys at the University of Georgia, but he's also the NWTF spokesperson when it comes to turkeys, and he was there talking to us a little bit. And one of the biggest things is that we now, a couple years ago, we have an endowed professorship at the University of Georgia, and kind of what that means is that it ensures our future, that we will always have the study of the wild turkey done at Georgia by somebody forever. And so that's pretty awesome to hear that. And this week they just announced another one at Mississippi State. So now there'll be two, and I think we'll see more colleges get on board with this. But what it, really, when you started thinking about it in the last 10 years, there's been two main guys. That's Brett Collier out of LSU, and then also Dr. Chamberlain out of Georgia. Them two have done most of the turkey research in the past 10 years. And I mean, there's been other people's doing research too, don't get me wrong, but they've been like descendants of them folks. If you can think of it as Nick Saban in college football, right? He's got this tree of coaches that come down. Well, there's a tree of biologists and people that specifically study turkeys, and a lot of that has started with Dr. Collier and Dr. Chamberlain. So to have them two people, there, I didn't see Dr. Collier, but definitely Dr. Chamberlain was there. And to have him talk about some of the studies that they have going on, the turkey DNA studies that they have going on with the color phases and that kind of stuff, it was just very, very interesting. I don't want to really talk about any of the results just yet, just because they're not final. And sometimes when people talk about things that are not final, you draw conclusions on your own, and it's not a complete study. So I do know that next year they're going to expand the study to more birds and more areas and more DNA testing. But let me just say, some of the things that they're on to, that they're looking at, that they're discovering is cutting edge kind of stuff. And, I just don't know how it would have happened without the partnership, is what I'm getting at. Without the NWTF, without all the sponsors that come into play, without the university support. But how this happens, where we've got so much good turkey research going on right now that we're gonna figure things out. Okay, and I know we've been saying we're gonna figure it out for years, but hey, listen, the Bob White quail, right? They were plentiful in the 60s and 70s, and we finally figured out in the last 5 years what happened. It took us 50 years to figure that out. So just so you know, it's not something we all want it to happen tomorrow, but it's just not something that always does happen like that. So I think the best thing to say is that we've got more people looking at turkeys today and studying turkeys than we've ever had before. So that's a good thing. And for that to live in kind of forever world, that I don't know that we can say that about very many things in our industry. There was I don't know how many people there was. I'm gonna go off on a limb here. There was 82 or 84,000 people, I believe, that went through the National Wild Turkey Federation sports show last year. This year, I don't want to say we hit 100,000, but there was more people than I've ever seen before. The show is on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and each of that, it felt like it was a day off. Like usually Thursday is the with the least amount of people there, but this year Thursday felt like a Friday, and Friday felt like a Saturday, and Saturday was I could barely breathe. There was that many people there. The turkey calling competition, that was really, really good. They had that had the outdoor Bass Pro outdoor drive experience. I mean, it was so many vendors, so many new products to hit the market, like with boots and new turkey calls, new packs, kind of the new thing now with everybody's going kind of light, and a lot of these turkey packs now that fit on your chest are being sold. And a buddy of mine, he was talking about, he said, what do you hunt out of? And I said, well, I still hunt out of a turkey vest. He said, well, when are you going to get rid of that thing? And I said, well, I don't know if I could ever get rid of my turkey vest. He's like, man, he said, I got this pouch. It fits right here. It's got my box call. It's got my slate. It's got my mouth call. He says, it's got everything I need. My shells right here. And he says, and I carry me a little fold-up chair, one of them little ones that folds up low to the ground. And he says, it's perfect for me. It's lightweight. I'm comfortable all the time. And, it kind of resonated with me a little bit when he was talking about that, because I can completely understand it. Thomas, you seen any turkeys on your farm?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I was polishing up the east side of the farm the other day down the right of way and on some fire break stuff, and saw at least 8 longbeards cross the right of way. And one thing about my farm that I've kind of figured out is I don't see a whole lot of hens until spring rolls around. I'll keep a group of toms. There's been years where I've had a fall flock, some hens and some jennies in there and stuff like that. But the majority of the time, the farm really doesn't get cranked up until, as far as like starting to see hens out in the fields and stuff like that, until springtime rolls around, which, it doesn't hurt my feelings. The way my farm's kind of set up, it's surrounded by thousands of acres of timber. So, with the type of mass crop we had this fall, it wouldn't surprise me a bit. The majority of the food that they're going to be on in the wintertime anyways is going to be in the timber. Of course, the majority of my property obviously is set up for cattle. We're working on it though, as far as feed and food plots. But I have been seeing some turkeys, and usually around this time of year, it's going to get cranked up. Going back real quick about the NWTF convention, you had talked about the smaller packs and carrying around the chairs and stuff like that. And I've considered it, because I'm attached at the hip to my vest. I am. And I don't know if I've found a chair yet that I just want to tote around. Usually, I'm sure we're a lot alike. If I'm going, I mean, as long as I'm not showing a property that day or I have something scheduled. If I'm turkey hunting, I'm out there the entire time. We'll go. I mean, until I can get set up. Anybody that's ever set up on one about 12 o'clock, and then you turn around 3 or 4 hours, 2 hours later, 3 hours later, I want that pad to sit on when I'm leaning up against a tree. So if you did find a chair or something that you thought might have been the dope to haul around, you need to fill me in on it, because I haven't found one yet that I'm just willing to put on my back or carry it, or whatever it might be.
Well, I'll tell you what, Thomas, I'll make a deal with you. Okay. Whenever I get the invite to come up here to North Central Arkansas and go turkey hunting, I'll bring you a chair and you can try it out. No, I'm just joking with you. No, all joking aside, what do you have planned for that boy this year turkey hunting?
Well, the plans that I've got for it usually starts out with a lot of early mornings at the farm and trying to roost one. I tell my kid he's probably and I know everybody, if you've got a youngin' and you take them turkey hunting, you want it to be the best experiences they can have. And he's killed a turkey every year since he was 6. He's 13 now. And every year but 1 year, he's killed one on opening day. So that's kind of where my work starts, and just trying to get them roosted and trying to figure out where we need to set up. But we'll be at the farm and this year, and that's about all I've got planned for him so far.
Well, would you entertain bringing him up to Missouri?
He would do backflips up there if I could tell him that he was going to get to go.
Well, let's just make it happen. All right. Let's make it happen. I love taking a kid every year, and last year, so my daughter now is 16, and so her youth is behind her, and I had her and another friend of mine, his son Tyler Lawrence, his son was there at the farm last year and took his first turkey, and I love taking kids. So if you want to bring him to the farm, come on up in youth season, and we'll make it happen, definitely. And I don't know how it. I don't know. I haven't looked yet how Arkansas and Missouri coincide, but last year I think they were on the same time. But if you want to hunt, if you want to hunt him there one day and my farm one day, whatever you want to do, we'll make it work. But
I've got a pretty good suspicion.
Yeah.
Because he knows who you are, right?
Okay.
He met you there, and he kind of knows what's going on. He's heard, he said, "Dad, Chris Place really got that kind of deer, got that kind of wildlife." I said, "Son, it's a bang up property." So
yeah,
I'll take a video for you when I tell him. He'll be fired up. I meant to touch on your daughter real quick. That last year youth season is something kind of special, and I haven't. Well, I shouldn't say I haven't. I've got 3 older kids, and my oldest boy, he's 22. Don't get me to line, 22 now, and his last year, he had his last year, and I said, "Son, you're gonna be with the big boys now," And anyways, it happened to fall, and you'll probably remember this. It was that youth season, I can't remember what day it fell on, but it was snowing a beat 60. It was snowing, it was like 32 degrees, and it was, you would have thought there wouldn't have been a turkey gobble in the country. And to make a long story short, I kind of took him, it was me and my buddy, we took him to a place on the farm where I kind of figured there would probably be some. I wasn't really going and listening like I do now. Anyways, one got cranked up, and it was a timber hunt. Got set down on a 2-track in the middle of the timber, and 2 hens walked through, and he walked in behind them, blowed up, and the snow was coming down, and his head was just as blue as I've ever seen a tom turkey, and he shot him at 11, 12 steps, and it is something that I will never, ever forget. And I said, "Son, not only did you kill one opening day of your last youth season, but it was probably the best hunt that I've been on."
Is there a bird more magnificent than a turkey?
No, no,
I mean, come on.
not even close.
I mean, our eagle is our national bird, right? But I mean, look, what bird that their heads turn red, white, and blue? I mean, come on. I mean that sucker. I mean, it just
I
don't get any
agree.
better than that.
No, and that's what I'll tell everybody. I've never, when I was just a child growing up, not in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would be so infatuated with a bird. With a 3 foot bird. I'll never forget my buddy Moss. He said we were sitting in class and we were 13 or 14 years old, and my buddy Moss looked at me and said, "Let's go hunting. Let's go turkey hunting." I said, "I ain't hunting a 3 foot bird." I said, "It don't make no sense." I said, "I'm not doing it." He goes, "Just go one time." I said, "All right." And I didn't know a thing about it. And it's been all gas, no brakes since.
Yeah.
It's been a wild ride, and I think this is kind of, had it not been for the wild turkey, I wouldn't be involved in habitat management and land management like I am now, and it's all due to a bird that 2 or 3 months out of the year he blows up, the snoot runs down his face, and he gobbles his brains out, and here I am.
That's right. There's been a lot of sleep lost. There's been a lot of miles traveled. There's been a lot of money spent chasing this bird. But listen, the relationships that we've made across the country and just the scenery is breathtaking. Last year from going to Idaho to Washington and hunting out west is probably some of my favorite. But with these kids, man, and first time hunters, my daughter last year on that hunt with Tyler's son, it was so special because when Tyler and his son wrote when they come into camp, Tyler's like, now he's pretty calm on most of these hunts. He don't get too worked up. He's got it all together. And I said, okay. So we sat down there and shot the gun, to make sure he was on, and he shot it. And he's like, "Mr. Chris, I got it. It's not going to be a problem." Well, man, right out of the gate, and kind of what we had worked out was we had 4 people in the blind, and my daughter and Tyler's son was in the blind there, and we were all getting ready, and I said, now you got the first shot, make sure, and then Edie will shoot, afterwards. And so he's like, okay. So, man, here come this big old bird strutting in. He's getting closer and he's getting closer. And finally he's 25 yards, come out of strut, head up, looking around. I said, okay, it's time, and man, boom, he shoots and he misses. And then as turkey's walking off, he shoots again, boom, misses. And they just walk out of his life. And he's kind of there sitting in the blind, lip puckered up, pooched, and just, I said, now, it's going to be Edie's turn next, just letting you know. I said, you just got to make sure and stay on the turkey. And I'm not lying. I went back, because I videoed it. I went back and watched. There was dirt flew 4 feet from that turkey. 4 feet. Like, it wasn't even close, but he just got so wound up, and that's what a turkey will do to you. I'm just telling you, even though you think you got it all together, you really don't, because he will come in and wreck your dreams. And so then comes in, as luck would have it, 2 toms this time. And I said, all right, Pierce, you get on the one on the right. Edie, you get on the one on the left. We're going to try to make this thing happen. And so Edie got on the one and she shot, and man, he just flopped. And Pierce got on the other one and boom, shot and got him. And we had a double right there. It was just so special. and they were so happy, and I was so happy for them because that redemption sometimes is what keeps us going, right?
Amen.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have the awful. I mean, I've had some fits in the woods. I'll tell you, I've done some things that I am not proud of after missing the turkey. All right, but the redemption is so sweet when it all comes together, and it makes it all worth it. I'll tell you that right now.
Absolutely, and you're not lying. I I've had some fits in the woods sometimes in some moments that I am not proud of at all. And, you know, I tell everybody, turkey hunting can make you feel like you could call in any turkey in the country. And it didn't matter if it was in a Walmart parking lot or the Pacific Northwest or wherever. And then sometimes it'll make you feel like you've never blown a call before in your life and you don't know a thing. But you know what? You'll wake up in the morning early again and go and try to do it all over.
I can remember a year that it was just right. One of those years, it was just right. And I want to say that the count was like in the lower 30s of successful turkey hunts that I was on that year. Now, this is not just me harvesting birds. This is me, kids, friends, guiding some people. I mean, it's all that. But, I mean, that year, it was like every time I went to the woods, it felt like we were shooting a turkey. And then you get some years that it just – it makes you thankful for them years. It makes you appreciate them. I'll tell you that. But no, man, I'm just so fired up. Going to Nashville for that week. Being there with all the turkey people. It's like one big family. I'm not lying. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, we as sportsmen are family, but when you go to that event, especially in that city, that venue there at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel. It is just like everybody clicks. Everybody gets along. Everybody's wearing camo. Everybody's saying, "How you doing? Thank you. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir." I mean, it's the way I envision life should be normally, right? But it's a great event. The National Wild Turkey Federation. I started with it about 26 years ago. And we've raised a lot of money for the turkeys, and that's we just keep raising money for the turkeys, and it's things are going to happen. Research is happening. We're putting a lot of money behind research right now to try to get everything figured out, and I think we're getting close to something. I really think we are, and there'll be publications come out in the near future, I'm sure. But anyway, very exciting times. And get back from that, we got our turkey banquet here in Benton County, Arkansas, the 28th of February. So we're in full swing of that. I'm the president of that chapter, and I've got a great committee of about 20 people, and we meet roughly once a week and go over ideas for fundraising so that we can keep enhancing the habitat and the research for this wonderful bird. But you know what? True North farm life, it's all about the farm, right? It's all about the land. It's eventually what we keep coming back to. And so, Thomas, what kind of projects are you working on? What's in the fold, buddy?
Man, today I sent out an email to our Prescribed Burn Association, and I personally got a burn coming up. It's tentative right now. I need something out of the east. And as long as the weather's good, we're fixing to burn about 80 acres of timber on the property. It's going to be mostly a fuel reduction. There is some TSI done on the stretch, a couple of cut and drops, 2 or 3 acres, kind of mid, I would say probably actually in the center of the burn, one's on the north end. But with that being said, I've got that set up, just polishing up the fire breaks. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse by saying that, but we've talked about it before. I'd say 95% of burning is just prep, making sure you've got everything squared away. So when you get ready to light a match, you're still sitting on go, making sure everything's going the way it should, but it shouldn't be chaotic. It shouldn't, you shouldn't have to worry about, oh my gosh, is it going to get out, this, that, and the third. Respect it, but if you put your due diligence in and do the work, that should be, air quotes here, the fun part, right?
Right.
Finally finished up on my equip program over there on the 40. Me and Tyler Savage, my biologist, he brought the native plant cedar over, put in 14.6 acres there, wrapped that up, had the boys come in from the NRCS office, take a look at our work, and hopefully going to get paid on that here in the next few weeks. So I've got that done, and other than that, just trying to get ready. We've got one more burn scheduled for our Tri-County area. Another private landowner, he's wanting to burn on Monday too. So, it's that time of year, man. Everybody's fixing to get cranked up on these dormant season burns, and just in the mix, man. Just trying to get ready and because once I get this big, it's a larger portion, a larger tract on the farm, this 80 acres. Once I get that burnt off, I can kind of pick and choose other not parcels, but other parts of the property that I won't burn. So it might be another 4 acres or 12 acres or something like that, which doesn't require, 6 or 7 people. You can get a lot of these done with 2 or 3 people, but that's about it. Picked up, currently trying to pick up a lease, another 40-acre lease. Casual conversation with a family member, and just giving them the rundown on, the projects that I've done on the 40 acres that I've got there on the highway, what I'm doing on the farm, just informing them of, some of the things that I'm trying to do and trying to accomplish from a habitat standpoint, because, now that this 5-acre property is 5-year project is up, I'm looking forward to moving on to the next one. There's some opportunities for some, CSP, and just trying to get my ducks in a row so I can get in there and get some more projects lined up, because I can't stand sitting idle.
That's right. We hunt, a few months out of the year, and then trap a few months, and now we're in full swing of habitat season. We're getting rolling right now. It's full swing. A lot of our stuff, or my stuff that I'm working on, is a lot like yours. I am helping a guy on Friday, a good friend of mine, and he's got about 10 acres that we're going to burn, and he solidified his burn lines today. Got them all mowed down to the ground, and so we got a good fire break around it, and looks like we're going to have a north wind on Friday, so everything should be a go. Last year I was wanting to burn in March, okay, so that was my goal all year. I'm going to burn in March. The month of March is what I want to do, and we got into March, and I'm going to tell you, the winds got up, it was dry, conditions wasn't right, it just never was right until I burnt the latest I've ever burnt, which was right around the first part of April. And I don't like burning in April personally. I like burning prior to. So I said this year, as soon as I get past the middle of February, the next time that I get a good day is when I'm going to try to shoot for to make that happen. So after we get done with his burn on Friday, we're going to come over to my farm and start burning on my farm. I've got probably 40 acres, 50 acres to burn, but it's all patchy. Like, it's not, it's probably in 8 different sections. So makes it a little tricky, right? In that many sections to get it burnt. But that's my goal is to burn that. And we'll see where we get. What I'm thinking about doing is you think about, we're probably going to start around 9 or 10 o'clock, and we're probably going to burn to about noon there on my friend's place, and then we're going to go over to my farm. So it's going to be 1 o'clock Humidity is probably going to be at a really low point at 1 o'clock. So thinking about that on my farm, I don't want to start with my grasslands that's got the most fuel, right? I probably want to go with something more like something with not as much fuel, maybe burning through the timber, that kind of stuff. We'll start with that when we get there. But later in the afternoon, as the humidity starts to rise, then we're going to get into that fuel stuff, right? So it just comes back to a prescription, right? When you start looking at this humidity and wind speed and all that stuff and the amount of fuel that you got in it, you just start looking at that and you start knowing what's right to burn when. And so some people just look at they just look at the wind speed and the relative humidity, and they don't take in effect the fuel. That's probably the last thing they take in effect. Last thing they consider is the fuel load in it. But it's probably one of the biggest components, to be straight up, because you get that switchgrass that's 5 or 6 foot tall and a big puff of wind on a 20% humidity day, and you know what that's a recipe for? That's a recipe for getting your neighbors caught on fire. Okay, so that's not what you want to do. You just want to make sure, most of my prairie is, knee high and shorter, so that kind of stuff will burn good when it's a lower humidity. And I've got good fire breaks too. They're probably, I'm going to guess, 15 foot wide, and they're mowed down to the ground. I mean, where I can see almost bare dirt. So, they're really good fire breaks. And like you said, Thomas, you're dead on, man. When you say 90% of it is the prep, it is. When you got the prep right and the conditions are good, it makes for an easy day. It makes for an easy day on a burn. But when you don't have the prep done and the conditions are wrong, you better be ready to work your butt off. And you know what happens when you get working hard in them fires. You get them snot bubbles that start coming out your nose. And if anybody's ever worked a fire, they know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Because when you get inhaling that smoke a little too much, and your nose just starts running, you can't really control it. It just happens.
Absolutely, and you hit a good point there. And I can remember when I first started burning, I never considered. I shouldn't say I never, but it was low on the totem pole of what exactly I am burning. Whether it's 1,000-hour fuel or a 5-minute fuel. And what I mean by that, I don't mean necessarily like once it's on fire, that's how long it takes to go out. Essentially, what I'm talking about is if you are, let's take your bedding areas like your switchgrass, those fields that are 20, 30 acre fields, even considering your fire breaks as well. You talked about having a 15-foot fire break around some of that stuff, and everybody's like, well, 15 foot, holy cow, a lot of all this and that. Well, essentially it needs to be about, if it's 3 foot, you need to probably have at a minimum a 10-foot fire break. And I've rode around that farm, and I know exactly what that probably looks like once you catch it on fire. And the considerations that you were talking about as far as, and I don't know what your friend's burning, but you mentioned burning at your friends, and then going to your farm, midday, sun shining, bluebird. You're exactly right. The humidity is going to be extremely low. Mm-hmm. And you can jump, and you've got options for your timber and stuff like that, and it's probably the best option to jump on that timber while you can. If the sun's shining and it's a good burn day, that doesn't mean stop because I don't have anything to burn. That means let's figure out what I can burn. Mm-hmm. So jump in the timber, and then, those fields that you're talking about, especially like your switchgrass fields and stuff like that you use for bedding, I have no doubt that them jokers will go when it's dark, mm-hmm. And you have a lot more control there, as far as, not worrying about anything getting away from you. And it's, they hear that 15-foot fire break on some of your bedding cover and, in your switchgrass, and you can turn right back around in the timber and blow out a 3.5 foot fire break down the mineral soil, and the wind could be blowing 15 mile an hour, and you'll never have a problem. And that it just goes back to, if you're not comfortable with burning, first of all, I would have somebody on site that knows what's going on. And, the more you do, the more you educate yourself. And because I can only imagine if I had never burned in my entire life, and you gave that explanation, and it makes perfect sense to me. They're going, no, why in the world would he burn one place and then turn back around and have to burn something different at his farm? So, it's not just throwing a match on the ground and walking off. You've got to educate yourself and know, and not to mention, once it's burned, the regen that comes from that and how the wildlife responds to it, you'll be like, oh, I need to do this every year,
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's incredible to watch let's just take the day you're burning, okay? The day you're burning, what you see rabbits running, you see field mice, you see hawks in the air circling because they're getting them a bite to eat, right? This is all nature happening. And then what you don't see necessarily is you don't see them thousands of seed heads that was once 6 foot in the air, because now all that seed is on the ground, right? And so what's happening with that seed? Well, there's several things that's happening with that seed. That bird is coming by and they're eating that seed. Like after you do a burn, there is tons of birds. When you start looking, I mean, there'll be cardinals and blue jays and a few turkeys. But there'll be all kinds of stuff out in that burn. And, turkeys really respond to burns, and I was joking with that, but they respond very positively. I always joke with, not really joke, but I tell property owners, I say, well, hey, have you ever burned your property? No. How many turkeys you got? We got a few. Well, they go out there and burn their property, and guess what? They got a lot more than a few all of a sudden that year. And you think it's really ironic that happens? No, it's not ironic, because now all that stuff is opened up. The turkeys can get to it. They can peck in it. They can do all their stuff, strut in it. I mean, all that regen growth, they're picking at it. It's great stuff. Great for the soil. It's great for the animals. You just got to, make sure and be careful with it.
Yeah. When I first started, selfishly, I almost wanted just to keep it a secret. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, when I first started burning and seeing the response from turkeys, I was like, oh, no. And like, nobody was burning around the farm.
Uh-huh.
If they were burning, it was, 3/4 of mine, they was burning a cattle pasture off. But I thought to myself, this is the best kept secret and I was like, I'm not telling a soul. I'm not telling a single person about this. And turn around a couple of years later, I'm like, if you're not running fire on your property, something's bad wrong.
Yeah.
But I meant to say this a while ago. I realized I didn't touch on it. But going back to the 1,000-hour fuels or 5-minute fuel, it's not necessarily how long that fuel stays on fire. It's how long it takes it to dry out. That's what I mean by 1,000. Like when I say it's 1,000-hour fuel, if you've got a right of way pushed and there's a bunch of big red oaks that's laid down the side of it, that's called 1,000-hour fuel. And essentially, you kind of want to tie that into your burn plan. And when you're making fire breaks, I don't want, when I have a right of way pushed out, I don't want that timber sitting that's laid on the ground. I don't want it set inside to the timber. I want it set outside. And everybody's like, well, that's kind of ugly, But you don't want to fight it. Guess what? When that stuff gets caught on fire, 3, 4, 5 days later, it's still on fire. It's because you've got a large fuel source there that stays on fire constantly. So that's I could go on forever about that. But anyways, let's jump off of something real quick. And I meant to touch on this because I pulled all my traps today. Of course, I did end up on a coyote. I finished up. I caught another coyote today. Had a pretty good year on the farm and pulled everything just because I'm having to move some cattle around on some pasture ground. But has your guy done any more damage on the farm? I know there was a time period when he was on there and he was off and he was taking a break.
Yeah, so he pulled all his traps this week. But the total count on the farm this year was 52. 52. So the best, I say the best year. Let me rephrase that. The most nest raiders and predators that we've pulled off the farm yet in the past 4 years. You know, but that just think about that though. Steadily trapping for 4 years, and we just pulled off the most. So you got to stay on it. It's just a constant, you know, and people might look at that and say, you know what, you're not making any ground. What are you doing? You know, you're not helping anything. But let me just say this, is that think about this. I took 50 off my spot. Now, inevitably, there's going to be more move in. At some point throughout the year, there's going to be more move in. But how many is now displaced off the farms around me that come back onto me? So you're making an impact. Either way you look at it, you're making some kind of impact on the predator population. And listen, you know, just think about this. If I've got 30 hens that nest on my property, and I don't think I have that many, but I would say that there's probably 15 to 20, okay? But let's just say that 3 of them clutches are now, survival rates are high on 3 of them clutches. Well, you just might have doubled your numbers. There might be 30 more turkeys on your property next year. Just by 3 more clutches out of 20 hens, 3 more was able to raise them till, you know, they were, you know, 8 or 10 birds in a clutch. And so, you know, every bird makes a difference. I just want to say that every hunter makes a difference. So don't lose track of that. I think sometimes we get kind of hung up on the biology of everything to say, well, you know, we're never going to have an impact on predators because we just can't trap, you know, all the properties. Well, no joke, we can't trap all the properties, but that's like saying we're not going to manage deer because we can't manage all the properties, right? Yeah, you manage them on your property. I manage them on my property, you know, and some properties don't get managed, but that's how you get averages. That's how the world works, right? So we just try to, you know, do best by our properties that we have and you know, that we have influence on. And, you know, if you want to better the population, or, you know, I've got a buddy of mine that says, you know, he's like, man, I didn't see as many deer this year as what I'd hoped for. They're not living on me as much as I want. Well, you know, he's got beautiful, big standing timber. It's beautiful. But man, the deer just don't live on him as much as they should, right? And so every year we have this conversation about, you know, should I be cutting some trees? Yes, you should. Yes, you should. Should be cutting some trees. Even if it's this portion of the farm this year and next year it's another portion. Matter of fact, that's what I would recommend, you know, instead of coming through all in one year and all in one whack and doing it all, do it in sections. And I know sometimes timber companies don't want to do it like that. You know, if you got 300 acres, they want to come in and cut all 300 acres. But I promise you, if you give them this 80 this year, 2 years down the road, you give them another 80, they'll still come and do your property. They'll still come and timber it, and you can put the food plots where you want them, and do, you know, you can even say, listen, I want every tree taken out of this area. You know, it's good, and I think he will see his hunting just go out the roof. But you know, it's just doing it, and the thought of it is the biggest thing that some people have to get over.
That has been the toughest conversation that I've had to have with landowners on like the consulting side of things. And when you start talking about, I mean, it is what it is, killing timber, whether it be, you know, bringing a logging company in and doing a select cut, or whether it be injection, a cut and drop, you know, whatever it might be. And don't get me wrong, I like looking down through big, pretty timber. I love it. I mean, it's a pretty sight to see. But if you want wildlife, whether it be from a quail to a deer, They can't scratch out a living in a closed canopy forest, and it has been one of the toughest conversations, like I said, that I've had to have with landowners. And like, I don't, what do you? And I've got news for them. The majority of the stuff that I look at, it's not like I'm sitting there looking at a bunch of mature oaks. If they went in there and cut every cedar, injected every elm and hickory, just those three in my part of the world, they could probably, and I'm throwing numbers out there, but a prime example is we did a timber survey on my property, and on a certain section of my property, and it was sitting at like 120 BA. And after we did the timber survey, my biologist looked at me and said, if you took every hickory off of that place, it'd be down to about a 70. And I'm like, I'm not in the hog business and I'm not in the squirrel business. I don't really care too much for a hickory. And the places that I've done injection and girdled and TSA and done this work, I've got a 12-acre patch as soon as you come through the gate. And I went in there and I've got it knocked down so much now, but as far as like what I want in this particular stand, that you got to really look for a tree that needs to be taken out, right? And I run fire through it on a 2-year interval. I'm going to put a growing season fire on it this year, and the structure, the plant makeup that's in there now is phenomenal. The maturity of the deer, because this was kind of my first project as far as TSI goes on the farm. Majority of the deer and the majority of the turkey will at minimum pass through this 12 acres. And if I had my mother drive up to the farmhouse and look off in that timber, and I could say, tell me what's changed over there, she wouldn't have a clue. She she doesn't remember the difference between it being closed canopy and down to a 75 or a 70 BA or 65 BA now. And it's hard for people to wrap their head around. They're like, oh my gosh, it's going to look terrible, la da da. And you know what? If you go in and high grade a patch of timber and cut everything down, that's over 12 inches DBH, you're gonna have a lot of slash, and it's gonna look pretty sloppy.
And most of the people that are doing that are walking off and leaving it.
Yep.
And they walk in there 10 years later and they're like, this looks terrible. It's the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yep.
It's got to be managed. You can't just drop it and leave it. Run fire through there.
That's exactly right.
Keep that all them native forbs and all that stuff coming back. Because if you just get a bunch of leaf duff there, it's just you're going to have all these stems growing up that's just going to be high stem counts, and it's going to be so thick that a rabbit can't even get through it. And so, it's got to be managed. It's got to be managed right. But let me just say this. This would be my biggest news flash to property owners wanting to better their property. If you want bigger bucks and more of them, if you want more turkeys, and you have a property that has big standing timber, it's almost like an instant recipe for that to happen when you start harvesting some timber. Now, it's got to be done the right way. Let me say that. But when it's done the right way, you're going to put a lot of money, thousands of dollars in your pocket from the timber harvest, right? So what's not to like about that? Secondly, you're going to make the hunting better for you and your family down the road. What's not to like about that?
Absolutely. And not only, what you just talked about is spot on. And I don't want anybody to get discouraged either when, they're like, well, I need to come in and harvest some timber. Well, you might have a locker show up and go, it's not worth my time, essentially is what they'll probably tell you. And you will go, well, I guess I'm not going to do anything then. Wrong. there's all kinds of programs that you can sign up for timber stand improvement. There's glade restoration if you have a bunch of cedars and stuff like that. So there's more than just one way to skin this cat. And if you have questions, send an email into us. I can walk you through it. Chris can walk you through it. So it's not just bringing a logging crew coming in and pulling stuff off the property and making money. There's also ways to be reimbursed or even make money through TSI or, a glade restoration or whatever it might be through, NRCS programs and stuff like that. But you've got to educate yourself in order for you to know how to take advantage of, those opportunities.
That's right. And like you said, TSI, Timber Stand Improvement, that is a lot of governmental agencies and counties offer that as assistance. Now, you got to apply for it and get funded for it. And when you get funded for it, it goes to either pay you to do it or you can pay somebody else to do it. If you're one of those people that says, you know what, I don't know the first thing about it, and I don't really want to get out there with the ticks and chiggers and do it. It's just not who I am. I don't want to spend my time. I don't have time to do it, right? Well, guess what? There's people out there that you can contract that will do it for you, and probably pretty close to what the TSI payment would be, what they could get that done for. So, there's a lot of ways you can better your property out there is all that I'm saying. I'm going to touch on one thing. We're about out of time here, but, coming into March, a lot of things kind of happening with burning on the property. Some people may be thinking, you know what, I need to plant some more screening on my property for some permanent screening for entrances and exits, or maybe it's just from the road, to keep people from looking from the road, and that stuff's done there too. But also I think about my pond, and my pond's kind of been on my mind here lately on my property because one, it's been kind of low, and I've been building some I'm calling it spawning structure, right, for when them little fry come off their beds and they go to, they got to have a little place to hide there. So I've been working on that. But my pond's been low, and mainly because all fall and through most of the winter, we haven't had any big runoff rains. Now, my pond is 1.8 acres in size, and I have a 33-acre watershed that feeds it. But it depends on runoff from rainfall. So we've had a lot of good rains in that time, but we haven't had any big rains. Well, I got my first structure done, and I've got 4 more to build. And as luck would have it, this week while I was going to Nashville, we got a 3-inch rain. How about that? So I will be out there in my waders. I'm probably going to be better off just to get out there in my shorts because I'm probably going to end up getting wet. But I'm going to put these spawning pallets in place, hopefully with some help and not falling in the water and all that stuff, because I bet it'll be cold this time of the year. But no, just getting that, because we've got my bass will be coming in March, so I'm going to stock 100 northern Titan white black bass in the pond there, and so we'll get that all started. The other thing that I've been contemplating is aeration in my pond, and I've talked a little bit about this, but I've talked with several people over the past 2 to 3 weeks, and I probably could get by without aeration. But that's a probably could get by. Did you hear what I said? Probably could get by. And anytime you're saying that, when it comes to management of anything, it's not the best scenario, right? That's not what we want to do. And I don't do anything. I like to do things right. That's personally what I like to do. And so I am going to invest in an aeration system for my pond that I've decided to go with solar, and it's going to be 3 diffusers that will be, and I'm going to do all the work myself. I'm not going to contract anything out. It comes with a 35-page manual that I'm going to read front to back and back to front and watch some YouTube videos, and I'm going to get after it. But aeration in your pond, what does it do for you? Well, first of all, it puts oxygen in the water, right, for the fish to have in some of them low oxygen moments. But also what it does is it takes, bubbles. I'm getting the bottom diffusers, so it takes, kind of circulates the water within your pond too to kind of have a little bit fresher water. And also the system that I'm getting will run 24/7. So it is solar, but it's also got, I think 4, 5, 6 batteries that back up for nighttime use. So it'll be on a timer that it'll come on, kick off throughout the night to provide oxygen, because that's really the lowest time for oxygen is during the night. But for water quality purposes and to be able to give my fish fresh oxygen, all the time, that was my deciding factor to finally go. And some people may say, well, why'd you go with solar versus electric? Because I have electric that's probably 200 yards from my pond, so I could have run electric there, but the cost to do that was roughly going to be, well, what I was quoted was $3,000 to $5,000, and then I'm going to have at least a $40 a month charge for just having the service, and then whatever electric use I use beyond that will be, part of it. Now with the solar system, of course, there's no monthly fee or any of that, and the cost for that is about $4,500. So, I think over time it will pay for itself. Yeah, well, I'll have to replace things. Yes, like always. I mean, we're always working on stuff, right? But for me, I think solar is going to be the way to go. It's the way I'm choosing to go. So we'll see if it all works out. But it's exciting times for aeration. Now, something to keep in mind with aeration is that you don't go out there and install that aeration system on day one. You just hit the button and say, hey, let's start blowing bubbles up and let's start creating oxygen in the water. There's been a lot of people that have killed their fish in their pond by doing that. Okay? Not everybody knows that, but if you read the instructions, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to double it each time. So the first day, you run it for 30 minutes. Day 2, you run it for an hour. Day 3, you run it for 2 hours. Day 4, you run it for 4 hours. You see I'm doubling it every day that it starts running, until finally you're up to 24 hours within that 8 or 10, 12-day cycle. There you're up to running it all the time. But that's the right way to do it. And you'll read a lot of posts about aeration that people talk about fish kills with aeration, and 90% of the time that's what's happened. They just didn't read the instruction. They went out there to put their aeration system in, and they flipped the switch and started aerating their water, and they said, man, I've done it. It's working. You just keep it on. And they have to adapt to it, is what I'm getting at, over a longer period of time versus just a short period of time. It'd be like somebody sticking a air hose in our mouth and telling us, that take as many breaths as you can in a minute. They're just getting way too much at one time. They've got to get used to it over time. So
you'll when you get ready to install that, don't invite Daniel over, because I don't think he'll be a whole lot of help.
Yeah, it's going to be tedious. I mean, I'm gonna I have to put these solar panel poles in concrete in the ground, and then make sure they're pointed to the south, and then getting everything wired up, all that stuff. There's going to be some pretty handy people with me when I do it, if you know what I mean. Yeah. If I need the muscle, that's when I call Daniel. Yeah. But anyway, hey guys, it's been a great week. It's been a great episode. I think we've touched on a lot of different things, from the NWTF convention to burns to pond management, to a little bit of everything this week. And, we just want to keep it real here with True North Farm Life. And if you have any questions about your farm, if you have any questions about property in general, give us a call. Here at True North, we specialize in land sales, and we would be happy to talk with you, meet with you, whatever that may look like. Just give us a call at any point in time and let us help you. Until next week, we'll see you guys later.
Thanks, guys.
We love to hear a Bob White singing his song, see a big buck on a frosty dawn, watch our kids catch their first bluegill, see them laugh and hear them squeal. We weren't born into it, but it fits us just right. We thank the Father for his guiding light. We knew we were blessed with this kind of living. That's why we want to keep on giving back to farm life. True North Farm Life. It's a great life. True North Farm Life.